Hey there, future audience. So welcome to my new series where I criticize your art and try to make it better. And in the process, hopefully make you a better artist. I'm an independent artist and a teacher for realistic drawing for bachelor and master degree students, which is how I came up with this format. Today's episode, number 1, is an artwork by Celine Williams. Her profile is in the description below, so check out what we can do. And also, if you want to be featured in an episode, just hit me up on Instagram and propose your artwork to me. Or if you follow me on Instagram, maybe I will hit you up and say, hey, I found this artwork and how about I make an episode about it. Just be aware that I want to support artists who take this seriously, and therefore I will only deal with original concepts and original work. That being said, let's get into it. Okay, here we go. So, at first, when I do something like this with students, which is what I've been done up to this point. So, as you know, this is my first try on this to do it outside of educational purposes. So, but rules stay the same. So, first thing, I check the resolution of the image, and immediately I see that it could be higher. So, if you put in all the work for your image, might as well make it a higher resolution so that you can, print it later on. Or more than just a little piece of paper without it getting pixelated and all of that. So what I usually would recommend is something like at least a 12 megapixel equivalent, which would be 3000 by 4000, something like this. So let's just punch this up to 4000, I guess. Let him do his thing. So of course now you might say, yeah, you will interpolate in all of this and it will not become as sharp, and that's true. But since we're painting over it, or if you want to change something, I would say it's never really an issue. Okay, here we go. So yeah, you could also have it even bigger. We'll see about that. Second thing actually is I will check all of these layers if they make sense at all, right? So, but before we do that, I like to make a copy. So I'm duplicating all the layers, merging them. So this is our reminder of later on after we did some changes. So this is for comparison, you would say. So also on top, what I like to do is I like to analyze stuff. So let's do that for a hot second. All right. So just so you can see it better, let's take a more complementary color. Okay. So what's going on here is we have a potentially portrait-like middle axis composition, so all of what's important is going on this middle axis, and then we have some elements who would disturb this axis. So for example, the river, and similarly to the river, the clouds behave pretty much the same way. They make kind of a zigzag pattern. You could almost say that the image does this, right? Not very obvious, but you could say that. Okay, so first thing is I always question the aspect ratio of the image, because most people, when they start, they think, okay, I'm doing this for Instagram, I'm doing this for an A4 piece of paper, something like that, and then they will just not deviate from this format, even though the content might tell them, it's actually better to have a different aspect ratio. So, and it's a little bit the case here, because for me this is a high format, you know, this is a portrait, this is not a white, and this is also not, doesn't need to be rectangular at all. So, but you know, cutting away from it, we can always do it later, but as of right now, I would see this to be maybe an image like this. I think that would make a lot of sense, but we'll see about it later. So also, what's happening in the image up till now? So we could say, okay, there's shapes that are important, objects that are important, and objects that are not so important. So most important object, of course, is here, the statue. So that's fine and well, and the statue is pretty much in the middle, and it's very much back into the image. So almost you could say that the statue almost sits on the horizon, which is not a good thing. The reason for that is because, of course, if you make a size comparison now to the horizon, you would immediately realize that is almost indefinitely small, the character, when it's at the actual position of the statue, which, you know, would make the character make the character very small, at the same time make the statue so huge that it's not even fathomable. And you know how it goes. If you have kind of a flat ground or an even ground, and you can see until the horizon, first thing that happens is everything is the same at the horizon, right? So there's this kind of a decrease of contrast the further you move away. So this is not really backed up by the color here, because the color contrast here is pretty much the same than it is in front, which is, I would almost call this a flat out mistake, because that's not how reality behaves. So I would definitely change that, and then we'll have to see what is first. Let's see what is actually good about the image. So I think composition is nice. You have a nice tension between those two objects, very large object, very small object, and then you have your obligatory birds, which kind of fit the image. Maybe we'll put them somewhere else, so we do something later with them. And then we have the river, which basically is just divides color, you know, and makes it leads somewhere. In this case, leads outside of the image, but passing by the main attraction of the image. And also the river leads into the image, which is pretty good. You could say that almost the birds lead out of the image the same as the river does, just a little bit more subtle. So not a big issue, just have to be aware what we're doing here. And then what's also a good notion is that the clouds get bigger as they come towards the camera. Perspective, of course, is also true for the clouds, so they would have to become bigger as they move forward in the scene. And this is a little bit confusing here, because while they get bigger, they also still reach very far. You know, that would mean that in reality these clouds are super long, like hundreds of kilometers long almost, which is highly unlikely. But you could make the argument that in a stylized image it doesn't matter. So what also is very good is that the character's color stands out. I would say it's complementary to the sky color, while still being different enough for it to stand out. So that's good. And it's also has a nice contrast to the green. What is not good is that it's not silhouetted against anything. So I might move it up here, right, for it to be, you know, have a darker silhouette in front of the brighter water of the river. So those are my thoughts so far. So let's get going. So also I like to get rid of all the layers that I don't need. So first check these layers. One on top, so they don't do a lot. Oh, this is the lighting layer. Okay, so this is interesting because lighting in this image generally is a backlighting. You know, it's like the sun. The origin of the light is all the way back here, and then produces this kind of a rim lighting on everything. You know, so that means that everything that that is outside of the rim lighting is passively lit in reality. So that would also mean that this would have to be a lot darker the further you get, the closer you get to the camera or to the viewer. So let's see. My policy is here: if it doesn't make the image better, it stays off. So this rim lighting has another problem, and that is that it is bright throughout the image. You know, so on the stone and on the trees and on everything is pretty much the same intensity, which I can tell you right now that it's too bright, and this is a common mistake because if you also, it has a nice layer effect, the linear dodge effect. You don't see this used very often. So in normal, yeah, originally would look like this, but with the linear dodge, it's of course behaves like a brightening of the scene. So what I was getting at is that this kind of lighting is too much for these materials because they're absorbent materials, so they will suck a lot of light. It goes for natural stone. It also goes for the flora and fauna, all the plants and the trees. So you would never see them be so shiny, especially not back there on the horizon, right? Because contrast, you know, goes down as we move further away. So let's keep this off. You could make an argument that in parts it looks better with it off. Those are the birds. Yeah, we'll save the birds for now. Character has 2 layers. Didn't mean to do that. Just merge the 2 layers. So this is also very common for people to make more layers than they actually need to have, which then makes them more difficult to operate. 1 layer would suffice here for the character for sure. Now this is all the green. This is some of the green. Merging this stuff. This is ripples on the water. We'll redo this, but they would have to also be the same layer. So as long as nothing here pops out of style, that means we're always dealing with normal layers, because if you combine layers with different blending effects, then the result will be unexpected. This is just a little brightening. Oh, and this is interesting because it introduces these lines. So this, and is also linear dodge. So this, we don't want it. Makes the clouds brighter. Makes the clouds more orangey. What I immediately see here, that the image looks kind of better without that orange thing on. Also looks kind of better without this on, because that shadow tone here, that's a really nice contrast to the bright areas of the cloud, which I think looks much more realistic than with the orange on. So stays off. It's a little bit hazy, more light, a lot of lighting layers that just make nothing but brighten the scene, which is, you don't really need to do that. It's best if you just paint this in, because it's really hard to go with a linear dodge, because all the other changes you cannot you cannot simply do them on the same layer. You will have to add a new layer and another one and another one, and you're going to stack up layers. And if you want to go back to the layer to change something, it becomes very, very hard to do. So not recommended from my side, this extra layers to just paint organically, because the clouds are so easy to manipulate. It's not like you're painting a fence, you know, that you have all these little heart shapes that you need to respect. Keeping this off too. This I don't see what it does, so it stays off. This really made it better, so I'm keeping this. This, I don't know, I think it stays off. This is a tricky one. Let's keep it on, because what it does is it makes that contrast towards the horizon actually less, so that's a good thing. Yeah, some grays which are interesting. I will keep them. Oh, this is interesting, because that's where I presume that's where we started from, you know, original from the orangey background, and then she changed hue towards this, which I agree 100% looks better, because it's more it's contrasting the greens nicely. So it's a good decision. So, but they are also, this is also a little bit transparent layer, as you can see here when I flip everything off. So we will have to basically merge all of this stuff. This is still the clouds, still that's the river, but that really doesn't matter, it's the same thing. This we keep it off. We actually, let's get rid of that entirely. This we just merge it. If you just merge with off layers, then the off layers will be ignored. It's as if you had deleted them, so don't worry about it. So now we have a pretty clear organization here. We have the background, which you could divide it into water and sky, of course, by doing, for example, this. Let's do a copy layer. And that was still transparent, so that's no good. I have to merge this and then basically do it again. So now it's not transparent anymore, because I included the white background into that. And there's no need to keep a white background, because you can do pretty much everything nowadays on these background layers. Okay, we have the green, or let's call this the scene, the actual content, the scenery, and we have the character, we have the birds. So that's how I like to organize it. This is cute. You can see here there's a few strokes over here, which are on a separate layer, which, yeah, I can see why you would do that, because it's like a stylization that comes towards the end. Here though, I don't see a real need for them in the clouds. So from here on out, let's quickly save this. So already we can make a comparison to how we started with, what we started with and what we got now. So I will go from here right now. So for now, let's forget about the birds, right? Give this image another height, another boost in pixels. Also this way, I like to paint in the picture, seeing everything at once, not having to scroll or anything. I think it's very critical that you keep an overview over your image. So here, as you can see, we don't need to scroll. We can have a look at everything at once. And also there's the navigator window, which in case I need to zoom, I still can have this small vision of the scene. Okay, now everything that happens from here on out, I will quickly explain it. So first, I don't want him to sit on the horizon anymore. So I'm going to add another line of trees, and those I want them to be very hard edged, but also, you know, kind of evenly distributed. So I don't want those to go uphill or anything. I just want there to be the possibility that this behind the statue and behind those trees there is more stuff, you know, more of the scene that will go on, and that way you don't have this feeling that the world ends behind the statue, right? So that's what I'm going for now. So I'm taking now color from the sky, because everything in the back, again, it blends, it becomes more the same, and we will see this in a second. I don't paint everything here. So this I did it on a separate layer, because on a separate layer I'm still able to manipulate it. I'm still able to move it up and down if I want to. So next thing is, this needs to change in color. So I'll cut it apart. So the way I do it is I cut that which is, you know, obviously is more to the background. I cut it away in a convenient position, in a convenient manner, and that is, you know, basically behind this hill here in the front. So let's do that. And this time I will utilize cut instead of copy, because I don't want to be two versions of this in there. So now I can manipulate these separate from each other. Somehow something popped up here. I don't know why that is. Maybe it was, you know, overlapped before by something. So now what we can do is we can very, very quickly check for a new tone for this that is between the foreground and, no, actually let's first go. So this foreground, first of all, needs to go on top, because what's on top overlaps what's in the back, obviously. So that's the correct layer order. And by the way, the layer order in this file was pretty good. So everything made sense. It was just that some things had a separate layer, which really didn't need to have a separate layer. So now first I will make this darker. Also, as I said before, let's move the character around a little bit. What is good here, what she did well, is that she didn't put it, you know, all the way in the center, which would be kind of boring, I think. You know, it's debatable. I would say it's a matter of preference, but putting the character a little bit to the side is more like makes the character less important, for sure, and then makes him more of an observer of the main attraction. So that's how you would read that, I think. So make this darker, and you can go about this different ways. You can do levels, you can do brightness, contrast. I like to do this because then I can adjust saturation, and then I can also search for the hue, whether I want the hue to be different or not. But for now, let's keep it. Now, what is really important here is that this, see how this pushes this in the back, to the back immediately, and then go down with saturation, becomes closer to that sky, and this really sells the distance now. Could even make this lighter, but I don't want to compromise contrast, because contrast is not yet, how would you say, is not yet the full range in the image that it could be, and more about that in a second. So this could even be still darker over here. So let's see what kind of brushes you could. Of course, everybody uses different brushes. I could use just simple brushes, but I like to use the brushes that I'm also used to using. So I will not use too fancy of brushes that you cannot possibly emulate, but just some basic brushes that are not that boring. So the thing is that your sky can be any color you want it to be, right? But everything else needs to react accordingly, because that color from the sky, it gives the rest of the scene all the passive lighting. Okay, so all the shadow will be affected by the light of the color, by the color of the sky. So and you can see it here. This works well with that. So I'm keeping this as my new shadow color. And what you can do, you can try this out by just making a clipping mask in overlay, and then we just see what happens if we paint with that. It's a little bit dark maybe, and then where there needs to be green, the real green, like the real color of not the real color, but you know, it's where it's in the light, we could actually just delete that again. So what I can see here immediately is that I in fact like it to have kind of this color, and all this is pretty good, pretty nice tone. Let's bring this in here. Also a way to shape the hill. Thing is that you don't need light, and that's intuitively she did it right. You don't need light on all of the grass, because it's all the same. It doesn't matter, you know. You don't need to really see it, so you might as well get rid of it. So as soon as this experiment turns out to be all right, I'm going to combine the layers. Also, what I see is that I don't want this. This is abstracting the nice opening that we had to the scene, and it's really not helping anything, because it's also kind of more of the same. So next thing we do is we need a little bit to ground this, because all of these river banks here are very straight, unrealistically so. So let's I'll do a little bit of, I want to correct this a little bit. So it's good if it has a height to it a little bit, and of course we can also erase this. As we go further and further away from the scene, what will happen in reality is that that things cannot be that straight, you know, and also they cannot have that angle, because that angle is becoming a very long side now that just goes on forever without taking a turn or anything. And in nature, this is very unlikely. So I would not stick to that. So what I do here is I give now a little bit of grass or irritation, because that's all about, it's all about the silhouette that you create now with this lighting, and we will see how this goes. But we don't need a lot, just enough to sell it so that it goes over into the rest of the scene. Here now we have another tone that is nice, complementing the scene here, and we can create some depth with it, but we need to decide what it's going to be like. and maybe we don't need it all the way. So it could very well be that goes on till here and then it kind of stops. Also in the corner we will eventually have, I guess you could have that even darker. But let's see for now. So I want to establish some really dark tones here to because this is the frame of the image. Everything that is down here, you're not supposed to look in here. You're supposed to look here and then here and then here and then maybe at the clouds after that. So you can't you know, make every single strand of grass attractive. It's not going to work. So what you can do here instead is you can do a little bit of grass. This is kind of a technique I like to use. So if you color this grass now, you will see that you get a very sharp silhouette of the grass, which helps sell it. I hit the selection here, Control H if you want to hide the selection, and this, yeah. Now let's go to the middle ground, or no, let's go to character for a little bit, because she's all red in here and that's fine, but also the rim lighting, the shadow, it will apply to her too, of course. And we don't want to destroy everything, all the red. So I'll leave maybe a little bit too red there, but I need to give her the same shadow as everything else it's not believable, you know. And of course you can draw some more and maybe could add some sort of a detail, you know. Sometimes it's or just the impression that there is some kind of a detail. Don't really know the size of the character, but looked a little bit, you know, a little bit squished together, so making her a little bit taller. Now let's go to the next. So what you can see from the very beginning is that what I'm trying to do is I'm getting the most problematic stuff, I'm going to it right away, and then I'm going smaller gradually. And now I spent a little bit of time on the foreground. I'm not going to make it perfect now. I'm going immediately to the next layer, and I'm trying to do the same quality on the next piece of the image, because it's no good that for me to zoom in and make one thing perfect and then, you know, everything else is not even developed. That's not how it works usually. You should make everything better at once. So let's see. And I'm trying to mix some colors now in here too. And I will break this river a little bit further, give it more of a shadow side. And then maybe we make it, because it's going around the corner and then it gets pretty far away already, and then you know, you could make the argument that also there will be shadow here, because the guy will in reality cast a huge shadow here, and we completely ignored this for now. But if there's the light source behind him, or very low in the sky to create this rim light here, then all of this here is in the shadow, so it's passively lit basically. So we kind of have to take this into consideration, which is why I'm now making it darker in front of him. And this lighting here, I'm over painting it because it couldn't be there in reality. And then this would be my new highlight tone maybe. And all of the more highlighted stuff, I'm getting rid of it because it's simply too much. Same over here, if they're, and these now need to be trees. They cannot be bushes, because if this character is this small, then those would be some gigantic bushes in the back. So what I'm doing is first of all getting a little rid of a little bit of this too much highlighting, and I'm locking down the layer to do that, so I won't draw outside of the layer. Now next thing is that trees are dark. Trees have a lot of leaves, a lot of branches, and they will suck up all of the light, even more than the grass will do. So in the background here, those trees will be the darkest things around. So first of all, they need a little bit of the shape of trees. So maybe they're a little bit see-through in some areas. And also note that what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to respect her vision as I move forward. I will not just eliminate something and say, no, you shouldn't have this, because that's bullshit. It's her drawing, and and her idea, and I'm going to respect that idea, because else it's like, yeah, you made a different drawing now and it looks great, but it has nothing to do with the initial drawing. That of course doesn't make any sense. But so what I want now is I want this to be a little bit more chaotic. Background is bleeding through here, so I need to now give this a little bit more of even chaotic tree stuff. And I like to do this with this lasso tool, because I get from the brushes you often don't get that sharp of corners, but you really need them here in the background. Of course, it's a little bit, it's a preference thing, because of course if you have all oily colors and you like that style, then more power to you, you can do it. But for me, I like this to read with very hard edges. And then let's see if we can make these trees read as trees a little bit more. And that's what, and also this is a shortcut technique, just because in my mind I already tried to figure out how it will look once I put the color down. And this is a little bit of a advanced exercise, I realize that, but try it out and you might really, really like it, I think. So taking the brush, and then now I'm going for some of the darkest greens over here that we might want, and then hiding that layer, and then we'll see what happens. So the shade that needs to be in these trees, it's starting to appear, and once I think that's working out, we can now, so now there's a difference between the tree and the ground, and we can now even specify where the ground is starting, which would be fun to do. So here we have lines already, but I can make them even more distinct, of course. I can say, okay, this is now, I want, apart from there being shadows, but in between, we have a line that signifies that there is ground. And if we try to paint shadow, I need those same hard edges to be projected onto the ground, somewhat at least. Don't forget to save. And then what is now nice is, because I turned the color before, what automatically happened is that the stone of the statue has a little bit more of a stone tone now to it, and that's good, because it shouldn't have the exact same tone as all the plant stuff, because that would, could it be the case? Yes, but I don't think you want that, because there's a chance here to differentiate material, and you should take it in this case. And this is enough of now a difference, actually. So I would say, yeah, that works out well. But before we do, well, before or after, so we have to do the guy, we have to do the sky, because for the sky we want a little bit more depth, and then maybe let's try this out. And of course the river, for now I'm ignoring it, but we'll get back to it. So I will now keep what I like about the clouds, and then I don't want the clouds to do the same as the river anymore. So what it means is that I'm really trying now to maybe have the clouds just do this. See, just go from the center. I think that was kind of the idea, and it works, because it's like you're pointing arrows towards the center. Look here, and it works, but it's kind of a graphic design trick almost, but I think it's not bad to do. So the only thing, we need to make it a little bit more believable. So have a new layer. I'm just painting over this. The first thing I want to emphasize is this cloud line behind those trees, which I really like it. Well, that's working really well. What it needs though is it needs also some hard edges. And it's basically, it's fine. You could leave it like that. It's just a little bit bright on top, which is good. That's exactly how it should look like. And let's see if we can make it a little bit more distinct. And also, whatever shapes I'm doing here, when I come to the closer clouds, I'm going to do these shapes in a bigger fashion, so it sells the illusion of clouds being closer than those clouds that are very close to the horizon back here. And the way I'm putting the shapes is so that the light still comes from the center. So I'm kind of pretending still that there's a light source behind the statue, and then it illuminates those clouds from the center outwards, right? For this you can do a soft brush. It works. You get a little bit of this going on, and now in the back maybe we do some of that grayish shading. That could look good, I think. That's too... Forgot that I have a selection on. That happens. Just a little bit. Okay, so these clouds. The next thing we'll do in between here, we do these just in a way that they, I don't know, do some of them bend now and some of them are straight, and I think that's kind of the problem here. So let's see what we can do about it. This cloud looks pretty good. I give this cloud a little bit more illumination stuff going on over here. Also, I'm getting bigger with the shapes. It's very close to white, and we have to be careful with that, because if that it becomes too white, it could get a little bit too blown out of a look. What we need to do is we need to also do some shading there. So shadow is usually has a different hue. It's a more of like a passive color, like I utilized here, which that we can just also do it the same way. And of course, those shapes here, they're still true for the shadow. So the shadow, it will do similar shapes and will creep into the cloud from like few sides. Like here, this is pretty good, right? This area. So, cloud is like an object. It needs a light side, it needs a shadow side. It's not just transparent. It's not the right way to think about it. And I'm not entirely sure how this will turn out. Maybe not all of the clouds also need to touch the statue. I'm not really sure about this yet, but we'll see. Okay. So once more, let's see. And now I can mix colors. In the back we want more of the same, and then up here maybe have more of a have more of a contrasty thing. So also when you do that, look at your little image in the navigator, and it will kind of tell you the distance impression if it turns out well or not. So I like to use this a lot. Oops. Come on. This rarely happens. So now, did I use it all? Yeah, I think so. Okay, no, this one. So we have some more clouds, and now I will eliminate some shapes that I don't like. Then make some room. And sometimes you need to also do a little bit of experimenting, of course. You can't just get everything right the very first time. That's mixing some of the colors for it to get gradually, gradually brighter. Still using pretty hard brushes. One of the reasons for that is that I want to see change fast. Not only because I don't want to have this video be like 3 hours, but also because if you've seen change really fast, it usually means that you're doing something right in general. Something if you can get away with a big move, then that's a good thing. You know, you shouldn't just only zoom in and do the little increments, and then you're never sure if what you did was good or not. But if you do a big move and you get away with it, then that means that was really good. Well, let's give that some purple over here. So small image starting to look good. Now, of course, what you might want is some sort of a blend. It's good to have for the sky, you know. So let's see. So all of these edges, we can make some of them at least blurry. And of course, in the background I think we will add some. We'll make the background a little bit calmer in a second. Also, we can, if you overdo it, obviously, you will see that it doesn't work so well anymore. But you can get away with a lot of stuff here, as long as you have in general, you have good, nice colors and basic shapes. Oh, this is something sipping through because it's transparent a little bit, so I have to be careful with this. So can't really fix everything like that. So now if I want to make something calmer in the sky, I need to, of course, do a little bit of a selection again and try to paint this like a gradient a little bit. So want to make a smoother transition between those tones. And I'm not going to make it perfect because perfect is boring, right? So just make it a little bit better than it was. Now we'll see way this cloud touches the middle. Still not convinced about this. Maybe it shouldn't. And also maybe we need more light down here, a brighter version of this okay, let's do an advanced trick here. So now I destroyed the contrast, but this can be alleviated by just doing a blending option. See this? Gives me back my brights. So now this only applies to the background, which this was too noisy for my taste, because sky should be darker towards up there. Closer it gets, more contrast. Further away, a little bit less contrast. So that's what I'm going for here. And maybe even brighter. Well, let's stay on this layer and see what happens. So sometimes you just need to delete stuff again, which we're slowly painting over the just over, and you can see that you cannot really mess this up a lot. You can just you can run in circles, that you can, but you cannot. It's also organic, that you cannot really mess it up in a major way. So that's don't worry about it too much. I want this to feel a little bit different over here. And this, I almost don't want it to mix in there. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. Let's try something. If you're in doubt, what you do is you do a new layer and you try something bold. You try something that you feel you don't know if it's a good idea or not. So I want to resolve this cloud situation a little bit. So what I need is I want to get rid of those shapes that are a little bit irritating the scene, in my opinion. Not giving the statue enough room to breathe and to be the attraction. It's good that it's touched like here by one cloud maybe, but it doesn't need to happen over and over again. So something like this would be my suggestion here. And then now let's we can do another trick in a second. Give this cloud a little bit more volume, a little bit more of that darker color, even darker. All right, so that trick, yeah, watch this. So all of this is sky drawing now. We don't need it separate. I always do this. I always merge everything. I don't care. So we go from here to here, right? So duplicate these layers. Now, imagine what the sky would look in front. Let's bring some serious contrast into this. Can do this through here. Somehow changes the hue, right? So we need to look out for this a little bit, because what I don't want is it got a lot redder now, which that's not good. So I'm going to get the purples back. See that? Now that I have them back, what I do is I say, okay, back there it looks like this. In front it looks like this. So what do we need to do? Grab a huge eraser and get rid of it where you don't want it. Right? So now we have only achieved this, which is like even more contrast in the foreground, and it even pops more and comes forward even more, just like the ground over here did. So, and of course I can still manipulate the saturation of this because it's a little bit too much. Bringing it back down, it's fine because it's see, it's a soft erase. You can't do any change to it that you want to. It will always integrate because it has that softness to it. So now save again. now we get to a Mr. Buddha guy statue. So okay, we'll keep the shape for now, keep all the gestures, everything just as she decided it, but now we need to respect that shadow and a little bit of the rim lighting. First of all, cannot be everywhere the same amount of plants. I think that's not so interesting. So let's change this up a little bit. Also, guy needs some serious shadow. Thing is, if you put the lines, do not fall in love with the lines. The lines need to go. This is a painting, right? So if you want to keep everything too much, it's going to be a trap for you. It's going to hinder you and tell you, don't touch me. You can't see the line anymore. But in reality, this does not matter. Okay. So what matters is that you make everything better. So we ground this. The guy has maybe some toes over here. Not sure yet. I think that's how it goes if you sit in that position. And then that's really good. This part, I love it, because here you can see how the clothing that wraps around like so, and it goes. It's a statue, yes, but still, those statues, they resemble reality in everything but the color and the material. What would you say? Specifications? Maybe not. I'm not a native speaker, as you might have heard. So also this hand could have darkness in here, would look really good. Hand looks good, by the way. Those both hands look good. So that's okay. Can take my word for it. The greatest character designer of all time. That was a joke, because I rarely draw characters, but you need to be a little bit able to draw everything, of course. So where there is no light, there is no light. And even if you want there to be light, you have to accept that there cannot be light. So I think we need a shadow pass over this dude. Goes like this. He's kind of has the what would you say? The hat, and the hat is made of plants. So respect that. The ear will get dark. Sorry about that, but that's just the way it is. Then let's see here. You can be very... Let's leave the hand, maybe. This side of the hand especially. This I don't know yet. We'll see how it turns out. But here towards the middle, I want to be more dark stuff. Here too. Wraps around somewhat like this, and then I think we'll also have it affect the ground, or maybe not. We'll see. Now what I do is I do everything darker, but I'm not just going to do it. I'm doing it with the passive light color again that I got from the sky. I want to mix that into there, and then also I'm trying to do it with the overlay layer to get, well, first of all we need to merge these and then do it on a new layer, and this new layer has to be a clipping mask, because else we can... Does it? Yeah, okay, let's have it be a clipping mask. So I want this color, but what is going to happen is if I don't have it darker, then it will just not make the thing darker. So let's try it. So this is with a normal layer. So that's why normal layers are not good for coloring stuff. But flip this to an overlay and you can see that it gives me that tint that I want. So now I don't need to keep it that extreme. And also what I can do is I can influence its saturation to be a little bit less, which is probably a good idea. And I could shift it in hue, but I don't want to do that because I took that directly from the sky and I'm pretty certain that the hue is right. So I can make it lighter, darker. If I do it much darker, you will start not to see the thing. So I'm not doing that. Just do it like this, say it's okay. So now I did this for the if I like it, I merge it. That's how it goes. You will get to know this deal a great amount in the future because I'm always saying this. People are so afraid to merge their stuff, but in reality, it's an illusion. It's not getting better. It's not saving you from anything to keep stuff. So now I want to make even more lighting over here to the guy's features. So of course it's debatable where this light now comes in, and it can't be everywhere, but I want a little bit, and it might be much too much again. So I will tone it down in a second. Maybe it comes in over here. Maybe comes in on that shoulder. Maybe in the face just a little bit. So now this is a little bit like metal, so it's too much. I want to tone this down, have it integrate a little bit better. Now the rest we need to pick up the real painting again. So, and another trick, merging this again, will do is that because I merged it, I can paint in it much more simple. I can just keep painting instead of having to just navigate between layers all the time. This shape I'm breaking it because it's not, usually that's where it goes between the legs, having this dark, not to it's not necessary for anything to read in there, I think. So then I'm now taking from the material, this is towards the sky, so it gets bright, not dark. Same goes for this over here. This stuff will be more towards the upside, and that means everything that is potentially more illuminated by the sky will make it brighter a little bit. Okay, not the same, but can shine through here. And Now here we can actually make this really bright. So what I'm doing now, in case you're not realizing this, is I'm taking color from the image all the time. I'm just keep painting with that same color. Getting rid of some of the lines because it makes it look pretty comic-y, which I think it doesn't integrate that well, because the painting part of this image now really comes together well. It starts to become really good. So I don't have a huge interest on keeping all these lines anymore. Need some darkness on the hand over here. Of course, hand needs still to be readable. Cannot destroy those fingers too much. Yeah, also I need to remind myself that this cannot continue forever, of course. But I think you get it, that you can get lost easily at this point, because as it's getting better and better. So, well, that's not so good. Too much emphasis on that hand. Give this hand a little bit room to breathe. Don't need the same intensity everywhere, but this dark, this shadowy tone, since this is stone, every crack, everything will kind of have this to it. So, and also you can just make it a little bit more, how would you say, rectangular sometimes, because since it is a statue, you can easily get away with that. So it was a little bit too bright over here. So, and this is about the appeal of the whole thing. It's no use to put too much detail somewhere when all of the rest doesn't integrate yet with it, or is not developed in a way that it will justify the amount of detail. Let's put it like that, because you don't want to put detail that you have to redo because it's not integrating well and not actually making the image better. So we could say, okay, this is also, we have some of that, whatever grows there, we have it here too. Maybe stuff is a little yellow. I have to see about that. Maybe we can tone down the yellow later, or in a second. Now, something else with it. Oh, I kind of regret that that I already merged this, because this is a little too much. That nice shadow, it's good, it works out, but it's a little bit too did blow out the grass a little bit too much for my taste. So that's working fine. We still owing some birds, I think we do. So those birds were here, and those birds, let's give them a purpose. Let's say the birds come from here. zoom in for once, okay? This is going to be difficult without zooming. Drawing some birds. And what is important about drawing birds is, A, don't make those birds as big as, like, I don't know, airplanes, okay? That's number one. Because a lot of people make them birds too big, is what I see a lot. And I like birds too, but if they're too big, then that ruins the whole scale of your image, right? So maybe there's a bird on his fingertips. And they're flying off somewhat, and then it needs to be an irregular movement, right? It cannot be all the birds, all the distance is the same, because that's not how birds behave, and it makes stuff look pretty fake. So different amounts of birds in different distances is where it's at, I think. And sometimes triangles are enough to portray birds. That's fine. And some of these are going to be most of them are going to be light. Just the way, hiding the selection again. I'll make those birds appear. Okay, so say they just fly from his hands, you know, that's what could happen here. Where is my oh, didn't have this bug. Oh no, it's not a bug, it's a selection, and I didn't kill the selection. So I have the statue, I have the eyes closed. What is left to do is pretty much, I think, is the water reflection. So in the water you will typically see what is up here. So how do you do it fast? So this is going to be a little trick for you. So yeah, got used to the sky yet? I did, certainly, so I will keep it. So this I need to duplicate. Need to duplicate it, need to put it upside down. Not upside down because then it would rotate, but in fact what you need to do is you need to flip it vertically. So because that's, you know, that's the reflection, that would be the reflection, and sometimes the reflection is actually, I made this much more complicated than it has to be. So watch this. The statue and the sky. Duplicate. Merge. Flip vertical. Put it behind. Now, distance is not exact science, right? So somewhere here is the horizon, so I'm putting it behind there so that I can see what I want to see. Not doing this, which would, I think, be correct, but I'm doing it a little bit so that I can see some of the sky even back here, which is I think more appealing. Next thing is, this needs to go. Now that is a reflection, but it would be a super clear reflection, and also reflections are never exactly the same color. What happens is they lose some vibrance and they take some of the atmospheric lighting and they get more and more the same color. So you could emulate that. Let's say we put saturation down a little bit for everything. Next thing is we put some color balance more towards reddish magenta, because I want to get rid, see how I get a slightly different tone than what is up here, which is exactly what I want, because the color, the surface of the water together with the sky and so on, it will have an effect on the coloring. So now what we can do is we can put a little filter on this, or a little blur, to make it actually where is this directional blur? Let's see, motion blur. So right, so I guess that's my standard setting, distance, more, yeah, or less, we'll see. It's kind of not so bad. Oh yeah. So now one more thing that is not so good now. We need to give the water something to do. We need to let the water do what the water does, which is, it will not only reflect like this whole thing, it will also reflect little stuff. So that I will paint it. So what it will also reflect is all of this. But it will irregularly, I will do it irregularly, because you don't know how high that stuff is. So you just, you can basically choose. And then some of the reflections will create shapes. And then here's the same. And even when I draw it with the lasso, you can already see that it makes sense. Over here. Here it's already happening, so that's fine. Back there it doesn't really matter that much anymore. So maybe we do little cheeky line here, because this gets closer now to the camera, and emphasizing the size by making these lines also a little bit bigger again, getting some of the shadow tone from the actual reflection. Here I need to do darker than that. I need to do what is already in my image in terms of dark reflections, else it will not look believable. So this, yeah, it's fine. Next thing we can do here is we can do the same for some of these light reflections, of course. And this we'll do it where there's a lot of light, we do a lot of light reflections, and I'm doing this now. This is a little bit see where this light comes from the cloud, there would be the most reflection, but now the guy's in front of it, so I'm doing a little trick. So I'm shifting this a little bit so that you can see it still here, and what I'm doing with that is I'm keeping the that bright reflection relatively in the middle. That's just for effect, and just because I know I can get away with it without contradicting too much. Okay, now let's see how that looks. Taking now some of that really bright tone, putting it in here. Okay, something like this. Okay, what you can also do occasionally is Occasionally it can happen in here, but you have to be really careful with that. This is just to say, okay, that's not all of this is the occasional ripple will reflect something that is more up or more down. So this could happen, right? But I'm not don't want to overdo this. And now, once this is my reflection now, and now what I can do is I can smudge this some more if I want to. So make sure that only affects now this layer. And you could still do some smudging effects over here. Okay, so maybe not quite like this. Let this touch the character, that's fine. And of course we can also the little stuff, because now we're slowly getting here to the little really tiny stuff that we don't, just a little bit of saying, okay, this is where the water ends, right? So now what is left to do, because we might as well wrap it up here in a second. So what's left to do here is we could have one or two more little details here. So I could, for example, say, okay, do some plants here just to sell the scale once more a little bit, make this a little bit more interesting. Maybe there is, you know, a branch, something like this, to tell a little bit of the size story. I like to do that. No need to overdo it though. So you have the impression that there's a little bit of detail now here in the front, a little bit more than we had before. Locking this layer, and let's give this, no, not like this. We forget about the selections. So make this integrate into that other foreground a little bit more, so that you can see that's where it ends up going, right? So now also a little bit of atmospheric blending. So that's what we could do still, is now this I would consider this to be pretty much done. Of course, yeah, you can always put more details, you can always do more and more and introduce something more, but this is like the these are all the steps, not done to perfection, but this is what I would do with the image, right? So let's check one more time for the hue of the character. But yeah, let's keep it red. Was a little bit very red, but then now let's say, okay, give this red a little bit more of a little bit more of a bright pink tint, maybe like this. Okay. So about the atmospheric stuff, we can go and we can, on top of all of this, do a little bit of blending. Forgive me for deleting the old birds, but we'll resolve that in a second. So shadow color, right? This here. Let's see what we can do. If we see how I can just bring a little bit of, you know, natural shadow from the clouds on the scene, and just I can get away with it now because you know, that nature is not always, you know, staying the same everywhere. A little bit over here, and then in here even I can do that. Not too much though. It will get tricky if I do it too much, because this needs to be brighter than the foreground, right? So then what we can do is we could do a little bit of blending it up. Means I could do white, or let's say light color, which will be like the pink, right? So I could do some over here, but what you can see is that it gets too much very, very quickly. So I don't think we should do it, because we have all the nice highlights that we want. The image has enough highlights. It got a sense of scale, sense of distance. The only thing I would want to try to do is in between here introduce some of this reddish tone, and let's try to blend with this on an overlay layer and see what happens there. This is kind of cool, but we don't want too much of it. That's how I feel, right? Push it a little bit back, make this even more sunsetty than it is. And I think we're done. One more thing, if you want to check contrast, overall contrast. This did nothing. We delete it. If you want to check overall contrast, we just duplicate everything, merge everything, and we let Photoshop suggest the optimal contrast, and it suggests even more contrast than we put. But in this case, I would say Photoshop is overdoing it a little bit. I would say let's keep half of this maybe. Also, let's see, yeah, just slightly up the contrast, and that's it. So now, this is the image, and the way that, in case you forgot, because I'm sure you did, every single one of you forgot, even the creator herself. So we came from this, right? And let me see, we don't actually need this drama going on. We came from this, we ended up there. So yeah, well, actually what happens is that I think this used to have white in the background, so that we need to actually resemble that. Okay, no, it didn't change anything. So yeah, came from this, went to that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I see you soon at the next one, and yeah, take care.